Kunyaza, that's correct.
Yeah, Habeeb. So it's been a while. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, brother. Alhamdulillah. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Pleasure to see you.
Likewise.
So we'll start with illuminating the difference. When did you write Illuminating the Difference, by the way?
I thought we said Illuminating the Darkness.
I know, I got it wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, no. You're right. Illuminating the Darkness. You're right. Do you know what? In fact, what happened was I actually bought the wrong book. Because I said, you know what, I'm going to do a bit of research here and then, etc. So it's my mistake. Forgive me, it's my mistake.
No, I understand.
Illuminating the Darkness, yeah.
It's quite interesting because I've got 4 books with a similar title: Illuminating the Darkness, Illuminating the Difference, Illuminating the Performance, and Illuminating the Blackness. So a lot of people, and they're different topics, so people do get their titles mixed up. The first book, as you rightly said in the beginning, is called Illuminating the Darkness, Blacks and North Africans in Islam. Yeah. I authored that book in 2012, so 8 years ago now. Right. And that book looks at the issue of anti-black racism in Islamic history and talks about the values and contributions that black and African Muslims have made in not only Islamic history but world history. Yeah. I wanted to not only address how Islam views race, skin color, and the issue of colorism, but also I didn't want to talk about just the negative aspects, because unfortunately anti-black racism has been an issue within many Muslim communities way before the West even colonized much of the Muslim world. So I wanted to address that and how a number of Muslim scholars like Imam al-Jawzi, who wrote a similar book called Illuminating the Darkness, the virtues of blacks and Abyssinians, and he spoke about the virtues of black people in Islam or in history. And the reason why he wrote his book was because there were a number of black people who came up to him, and this was like in the 15th century, who felt that Allah had cursed them because of their darkness of their skin.
You're kidding me.
Wallahi, yeah.
Because of the colour of their skin?
Yeah, they felt disheartened. Because we have to understand that, again, this predates Western involvement with the Muslim world or Africa. There was colorism. And colorism, for people wondering what that is, that's where people of a darker skin tone are discriminated against or treated less favourably. So there was this idea that white or being lighter and fairer in complexion is considered to be more desirable, whether it's for a female partner, like in terms of marriage, or even in terms of intellect and stuff like that. So he wrote this book to address anti-black racism and to celebrate the contributions of black people in history. So when I came across this book when I was studying in Egypt in about 2009, I thought, wow, this book is phenomenal. Yeah. Initially, I wanted to translate it, and then I was like, no, there are other aspects and topics which he didn't address during his period, like the issue of slavery, the issue of interracial marriage, that I wanted to kind of bring to light. So and that's why I entitled my book Illuminating the Darkness, paying homage to Ibn al-Jawzi as well as other scholars who spoke about the issue of anti-black racism in Muslim community and to celebrate the contributions of black people and black Muslims in history.
All right, fantastic. Ibn al-Jawzi, was he a black? Was he black?
No, he wasn't. He was from Iraq. So
he's from Iraq.
Yeah, so you've got what we would now consider to be allies. So there were non-black people allies in the Muslim world, and there were Ibn al-Jawzi's one, Imam al-Suyuti as well. He wrote 2 books speaking about dealing with anti-black racism in the Muslim community and celebrating the virtues of black women and brown women, because during his period, he came in the 16th century. A number of the scholars and writers and poets of his period would just eulogize and speak about the beauties of white women, whether they're from Persia. But
they wouldn't talk about the beauties of black women.
No, they didn't. So that's why he wanted to counteract that, because he wanted to say, yes, women come in different shades and beauty comes in different shades. We understand that. But why is it black women are generally marginalized? So he wrote a book speaking about the virtues of brown-skinned women and black women from Africa and from the Middle East, who are obviously dark in complexion. And that book was the inspiration for my book, Illuminating the Difference, black, brown, and white women kind of thing. So there is, like, with my books, I've written 6 books in total. Most of my books is paying homage to people who've done something previously, but then just you could say it's a modern rendition of books that have been written in the past. So where it's really interesting this day and age with how Black Lives Matter and a lot of Muslim organisations, which is is commendable, are challenging or dealing or talking about anti-black racism. This is a new phenomenon. We've had many.
It's been going on for years, hasn't it?
Going on for years, and even as Muslims, we don't need to turn up. It's not to say that we don't need to listen to others, but when people think about like anti-black racists or people that are speaking about racial equality, they might think of the likes of Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, may Allah have mercy upon both of them, or even Martin Luther King, when in our tradition, of course they're both Muslims, but we've got the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was advocate for racial equality. We as Muslims forget that. So when we're thinking about, okay, where do we turn to? Where do we get inspiration from? We've got the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then we had scholars, both black, white, and Arab, who were speaking about this issue. So, like I said, Ibn al-Jawzi is one, Imam al-Suyuti is another,
Hassan al-Basri.
I've not come across
Hassan al-Basri is black, right?
Yeah. Even the question of the concept of black. So this is
or was he like brown kind of? Because I've heard from Iraqi myself. As a friend of mine, he actually lives in Turkey, and he said to me once, we was in a car driving. He said to me, Ali, I said to him, what? He said, you know, Hassan al-Basri is a black man like you. And I turned and looked at him and said, like, really?
It depends how you define blackness or black, because that's a topic that I do address in my book. Because even in this day and age, someone, so for example, in America, someone who is biracial, mixed race, they're considered to be black because of the one drop rule. Whereas in this country, in the UK, they're considered to be mixed race. In South Africa, someone who is mixed race, biracial, is considered to be coloured and not black. In Brazil, there's over like 130 terms to define blackness.
Wow.
And you're defined by your appearance. So if you're brown, like a chocolate colour, they might call you chocolate. They might not call you black. So even the concept of who is black. So if you have someone, if we've got some of our Somali brothers and sisters, some don't consider themselves to be black. I'm not saying that they are. To me, they are black. But I know I've got some Somali brothers and sisters who don't consider themselves to be black. When people think about black people, generally, they think of someone from generally like Western or Central Africa.
But I mean,
or from the Caribbean.
When you look at them, you know that they are black. So
it depends how you define blackness. I'm not saying they're not black. Because if blackness is something that is self-defined, if a biracial mixed race person wants to identify themselves as black, you call them black. If you've got another mixed race person,
like I kind of heard a little about that argument when the whole Lives Black Matter was going on, and there was actually a group of Somali sisters doing a talk about it, and they said we consider ourselves to be black. We don't consider ourselves to be anything else, even though we are Somali. We consider ourselves to be black.
No, as far as I'm concerned, they are black. But it's interesting that there are some who don't consider themselves to be black. There are some, even West Africans, they don't consider Somalis or Eritreans to be black.
That's true.
The texture of their hair, and even
when not even that.
When we talk about the features,
not even that. Just because they're not from West Africa itself, sometimes.
Would you say so? I think it's the phenotype and the texture of their hair.
No, not so. I would say that they would sometimes say that, oh, you know, they're not from Africa.
But they are in Africa.
I know, but there's that stupid thing.
But do you hear people say that about someone from Southern Africa? Would you hear a West African say that, like, someone from Southern Africa is not black?
I haven't heard it yet.
That's what I'm saying.
But I've heard of West Africans say it. I've heard West
Africans say that, and again, it's because of the phenotype.
When you say phenotype, what do you mean?
So phenotype is the features of your face. So, for example, when people say just typically a black nose or African nose, they mean someone with a broad nose.
But you see,
but that's a problematic.
But you see that itself is not good enough because when you go to Somalia, you have people like the Bantu who look just like me.
100%.
So that argument is dead.
No, I agree, and that's why
completely.
I agree, and that's why even when we're speaking about race, blackness, it's nuanced, and it's important that we have these conversations because when people even describe or say someone looks African, generally they're referring to someone who's from sub-Saharan Africa. They wouldn't consider a Moroccan who's maybe very fair in complexion, maybe he's got blue eyes, as to be African, even though they are in Africa. Do you understand what I'm getting at?
Yeah, but then again, you've got Moroccans who are in Africa, close to Spain, and they consider themselves to be Europeans. Right,
because of the way they look. So it comes down to phenotype.
I mean, I don't want to get too too technical here, but they know that they've got an African woman's shape, or the men's bodies will be strong. Okay, but then like a West African's body, really tense and strong. So for me, when you look at them, you're saying that people will say they're not African because they're not darker skinned.
Some people say that, but then I'm saying who because even the term Africa originally came Europeans. It referred to a city in Tunisia called Ifriqiya. So the original quote-unquote Africans...
What's the original name for Africa?
It came from Europeans. Europeans named Africa. So we're like holding on to this name.
What was its name before that?
What, the Europeans person?
Africa's name before that.
Well, I don't know because it was the continent itself, and obviously we've got Africa of over 50 countries. They didn't, even if you go to Africa today, like I'm originally from Nigeria, people wouldn't say I'm African, they will say I'm Yoruba. They will identify by the ethnic tribe.
If you go to Nigeria today,
They generally refer to them, they will self-identify by the tribe. Then, if they're going outside of Nigeria, by their country.
won't they call you an Englishman when you get there?
It depends who I'm speaking to, but it's tongue in cheek. So some people, by the way, my accent, or because I was born in the UK, will say I'm English, and some would even maybe say I'm white.
Right.
But obviously, clearly looking at me, I could never pass for a white person
If I go to Sierra Leone, they call me Englishman.
because of your accent and the way you speak and your mannerisms.
They call me Englishman. I'm like, they go, look, this Englishman don't come.
Yeah. Because culturally, you're probably more aligned to British culture than you are to. I'm just saying for them. So again, that's why these conversations are good to have.
And we come from the Timini tribe. My mum's Timini, so obviously, you know, they've got that bit in there. So when we get upset, there's these Timinis, you know, because the Timinis won all the wars and stuff like that.
I want to pull you up on something you said earlier, right? Which was interesting when you said, like, for example, Moroccans have got an African, like some women have got an African woman's body. Yeah. What is an African woman's body?
Well, everyone knows that a lot of African women have that, they have big shape. Do you know what I'm saying? Like solid shape. And in certain parts of Africa, like Morocco, Somalia, let's just say Morocco, for instance, it's known that they have like a West African woman's shape, you could say.
But then they would.
So go on.
I don't want to say devil's advocate, but I'm playing. Yeah. Okay, but then they can argue, that's a Moroccan woman's shape. Why is it from West Africa? Why do you ascribe...
I'm not saying it's from West Africa. All right, let me take that back. Let me take that back. Let me say it's not from West Africa. Yeah. Africa itself.
Okay.
Let's just say Africa itself, because it is in Africa. Even though it's North Africa, it's in Africa. You could say the same probably for Libya. You could probably say the same for Tunis. I mean, I don't know. But you see, what you have to realize, it's not the same for every individual.
100%.
Do you know what I mean? What one individual's got, another individual doesn't have. So I would say that is kind of like a bit of a stereotype in a sense.
It is, and we
play into it.
Yeah, that's my point. We perpetuate, play into these stereotypes. So that's why when we're speaking about who is black, who is African, it depends on who you're speaking to. And that's why I like to, and I did this in my book, is, okay, how did the Arabs view blackness? So when you said Hassan al-Basri, may Allah have mercy upon him.
Yeah. What I mean.
When you said he's black, is he black because he was dark in complexion, so he was a dark-skinned Arab? So if he was the way he looked, a dark-skinned Arab, maybe, for example, in the United States, maybe they'll say that's a black person. Whereas there are many darker-skinned people, for example, in India, who are as dark as me and you, but we wouldn't say they're black, even though complexion-wise, they're dark as us. So again, that's why you would see them and you would say that person's not black. Why? Because even though their skin tone might be darker than ours, phenotypically, as in their nose, their eyes, their hair texture, you know they're not from Africa. So that's why you wouldn't ascribe them to be black. Did you understand? Whereas if you're just using it descriptively, like I'm going to call a black person anyone who is darker than mahogany brown, for example, then technically, by that definition, an Indian person can be black, an Arab could be black. So that's why people have different definitions when they're speaking about this. Some
it's
people
quite
say,
deep though, isn't it? I mean, you got Sierra Leone, right? Let me give you an example. A lot of Lebanese live in Sierra Leone. They speak fluent Creole. Their children are born there. They understand the lingo. They eat the food. They're so embedded within the society. You can't look at a Lebanese person in Sierra Leone and say, he's not from Sierra Leone. They love the culture. More than Lebanon itself. They're like, no, we know they go Lebanon. Yes. Sierra Leone, this is our home. Do you know what I mean? So it's a hard one. And then you look at them and then and their children are half Sierra Leonean, can I say. And then, their children grow up being Sierra Leoneans. And all they know is Africa. Yes. So when they come out of Africa and they go to somewhere like England, somebody sees them on the street, they ain't gonna look at them and say you're African. But I think it's where you are and where you're brought up to say, this is who I am. It's like us being brought up in England. Yeah, we're obviously gonna say we're British, but we're black British or we're black British African. Do you know what I mean?
I agree. But the reason why I think skin tone. So I think there are two things we're talking about. So someone who is born, for example, in Sierra Leone, but their heritage is from Lebanon. Yes, culturally, they're Sierra Leonean, they're African culturally. Yeah. But if they were to leave Sierra Leone and go to Europe or America, they will be treated very differently.
Like a white person.
Exactly. So it doesn't matter about their culture. It doesn't matter what language they speak. It doesn't matter. So that's why I'm speaking about, and I was interested in how early Muslim scholars were speaking about skin color, because ultimately, whether you're like, you could be born in Brazil and look like the way you do. You could be born in West Africa. You could be born in England. Now, you could say you're Brazilian. You could say you're from the UK. You could say you're from Sierra Leone. But your experiences will all be the same similar as a black person, because unfortunately, anti-black racism is an issue which is around the world.
Yeah, it's deep.
Whereas if you was a white born person in...
You're always going to get looked at as white. Yeah.
You'll be looked at, and you'll be treated differently.
You always get,
as much as a white person born in South Africa, I've got a number of white friends that say they're from South Africa. I've got a number of Asian friends who, for example, born in Kenya or Tanzania, and they say they're African. And I'm not discrediting that. And I say, yes, you are African, but in the UK, even though I was born in this country, and just say a person of Indian descent was born in Kenya and grew up in Kenya, their experiences in the UK they'll be treated as an Asian person, and I'll be treated as a black person, even though I was born in this country. So that's why we can't just say it's all about self-identification, because what if I self-identify as a white, blonde-haired and blue-eyed man that's 6'6"?
Yeah.
I can self-identify that, but I won't be treated that way.
Habeeb, hold that thought. Brothers and sisters, we're here on Revive FM 94.0 on your FM Darwin Kamara Muslim Prayer. We're going to go to a break. We've got Habeeb Akande in the studio talking about Illuminating the Darkness and his book Kunyaza.
Revive FM
94.0 on the radio,
on your mobile,
and online.
Brothers and sisters, we're back after the break here on Revive FM 94.0 on your FM Kamara Muslim Prayer. A live interview with Habeeb Akande. Sorry, brothers, I got it wrong again. We're talking about his book, A Taste of Honey, and it talks about sexuality and erotology in Islam. Habeeb, we're gonna go to a track by Mustafa, and then afterwards, we're gonna come we're gonna come in and discuss your book. Have you heard of Mustafa the poet? He's a great poet from Canada.
No, I haven't.
He's doing some really, really good stuff. I want you to hear his track. It's called Come Back to Me, featuring James Blake.
Please come back. Please come back. Please come back. Please come back. If she runs her fingers through my past, she may lose the softness in her hands. Maybe I can still make it come back. The oak tree, my old TV, the friend who passed. Oh, I miss when the night was made for rest, when my heart was more than glass. I miss the days I was a wall. I miss not knowing I was poor. Please come back. Please come back to me. Please come back, at least in my dreams. 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 Please come back. Please come back. At least in my dreams. 'Cause please come back. Please come back. Please.
Brothers and sisters, that was Mustafa the poet. Song entitled Come Back, featuring James Blake. Brothers and sisters, we've got Habeeb Akande in the studio today with us today, talking about a couple of his books, talking about A Taste of Honey and Illuminating the Darkness, Blacks and North Africans in Islam. Habeeb, let's talk about A Taste of Honey next. How did you come up with the name Taste of Honey, first of all? And second question is, what is Erotology in Islam?
Okay, so A Taste of Honey, I came up with the name from an Arabic expression called Dhuq al-Usayla, mean taste the honey.
Okay.
And it's an expression which the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam he used when there was a female companion who was asking for basically her husband couldn't satisfy her in the bedroom, and she was asking if she can have a divorce.
Right.
And then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam he wanted to clarify whether they've consummated the marriage.
Right.
So he used the expression, have you tasted his honey and has he tasted your honey?
Right.
Because it's in terms of whether the marriage has been consummated.
Whether they've been intimate with each other, basically.
Yeah.
Right,
so whether they've just done a nikah, but they haven't actually consummated the marriage.
Yeah.
And then the woman then informed the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam using the fringe of her garment that either he was impotent or he had a very small penis, meaning that he wasn't able to satisfy in the bedroom.
Right.
Now, and then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam smiled when he saw that remark. When he heard what she said and saw what she said. Now, for me, what was interesting, and this is a Sahih hadith, it's in Muslim and Bukhari, but it's not spoken about enough. And what I loved about that hadith, not only the expression, it's a beautiful expression to talk about taste of the honey. Yeah. And honey in Arabic is a metaphor to refer to anything
let me just go back. You actually said that hadith is in Bukhari itself.
Yes,
Sahih Bukhari.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the hadith is authentic. It's in the books, but it's not spoken about enough. Now, if you were to hear that exchange, like again, what I love
because it's kind of like a taboo subject.
Exactly, yeah.
In our communities, really, yeah.
And that's why I wanted to again. So when people do ask me the question, how did I come up with the name Taste of Honey? I'll relate and explain that hadith because many people are shocked that there was a woman that was even speaking about sexual satisfaction, because in Islam, no, it's important. We laugh about it.
No, I'm not laughing about what. See, the thing is, the reason why I laughed is because we have to understand something that everybody has rights.
Yes.
As much as men have rights, women have rights as well. And this is something that is overlooked sometimes from the media and outside of Islam itself. People looking in, thinking that women don't have rights. They do have rights. And it's good that you brought this topic up because the woman actually, can call for a divorce if she's not satisfied in her marital life,
and it's important to raise
and in terms of cohabitating with her husband sexually, if she's not satisfied. And then, there has been people who have actually, filed for divorce on those grounds. I've heard about it in today's society.
And Islamically, it's perfectly fine. And again, in the early community, it wasn't taboo. People didn't have any issue with it. But we will talk about, and I'm speaking about in the Muslim community, we'll speak about the importance of women satisfying their husband. And if the woman doesn't satisfy her husband, he can get a second, third, fourth wife. But no one speaks about the importance of men satisfying their wives. Right. And it's seen as just because he's providing for her financially, giving her a roof over her head, she's bearing children, that's all that matters. Whereas women are entitled to sexual satisfaction in the bedroom. And I know it's it's a taboo topic, but it's one that Islamically, if the Prophet ﷺ was addressed it and it wasn't uncomfortable to speak about it, why should we be? And again, that's because of our cultural understandings about sex being something that's primarily for the male pleasure, when it should be a mutual exchange for both the man and the woman. And there are various references towards the importance of mutual pleasure in the bedroom, both in the Quran and the Hadith, and a number of Muslim scholars wrote about it. So coming to your second question about what is erotology. Erotology is it's the study of sexual desire and the act of lovemaking. So you could say so you've got sexology. It's similar to sexology, but the difference between erotology and sexology, sexology generally just looks at the study of sex, but from like a medical perspective. Right. Whereas erotology is not only looking at the study of sex from a, you could say, medical perspective, but it's also speaking about from a holistic, whether it's a religious or philosophical perspective, where people are giving advice. Whereas if you were to speak to a sexologist, they would just go by what researchers says. Whereas an erotologist will speak about the research in terms of sex studies and sexual research, but also will talk about the ethics. So erotology speaks about sexual ethics as well as the science of sex, whereas sexologists, which generally we hear about sexology nowadays, they just think about sex being research says X, Y, and Z, and that's and without, you could say, passing judgment. Whereas an erotologist, if you're speaking about ethics, you are passing judgment. So obviously from an Islamic perspective, we know that sex is an act that should only be conducted between a man and woman within the confines of marriage. So that's your passing the judgment, because that's what Allah and His Prophet ﷺ said. So if you're an erotologist, you're speaking from the perspective of
generally,
the ethics of sex. So again, this was a topic in terms of erotology, and in Arabic it's called ilm al-bah, meaning the knowledge of sex or the study of sex, that Muslim scholars, well-renowned scholars like Imam al-Suyuti, who I mentioned earlier, he wrote 23 books about this topic.
Wow.
23 books about the importance of men pleasuring their wives, the
Subhanallah.
importance of wives pleasuring their husbands, and the
MashaAllah.
intricacies of sex. So not just the acts and the mechanics of sex, but the importance of foreplay, the importance of communicating.
Do you think sometimes as well that we the men forget about this more so than the women?
100% because of our ego.
Women are quiet about it.
Yeah,
They're very, very quiet about it. But I think it actually means. I mean, I think it means a lot to both parties. But I think with them, I think they're more what the intimacy is very high, more than ours. I would say, but it's more of honor. It's more quiet the way that they go about it.
Yeah, and there is a tradition that says that. Again, this is not hadith, but it's a tradition that many of the scholars relate that when Allah created sexual pleasure, He divided it into 100 parts, and 99 of those parts was given to women, and 1 part was given to men.
Right.
But Allah put shyness upon the women. That's why women don't behave the way men are. As in, when a woman experiences sexual pleasure, like orgasm, it's much more heightened than a man. And a lot of men realize that, and there is a fear with a lot of men in terms of trying to control women's sexuality. And that's why, again, there's one thing being protective, and there's one thing you want to, again, look after your partner or your the females in your domain, but there's another thing being controlling and extreme jealousy and things like that, where you've got, unfortunately, some Muslims will do barbaric practices like female genital mutilation because they want to protect, because they're thinking, if we do this and cut off her clitoris, then she won't go out and commit fornication.
She won't be.
But that's not from Islam.
Apparently, sexually active.
Exactly, and that's not from Islam.
Yeah,
so the same way.
But that's rubbish, though.
But a lot of Muslims and a lot of men, and we have to call out men, and obviously as a man, we have to call each other out that they have these ideas and these thoughts. So it's like this idea that if I think someone
do they do it in certain parts of Nigeria?
Northern part of Nigeria, but it's not as common as it is in some parts of like East Africa and part of the Middle East. So it is
in West Africa and Sierra Leone. It's common.
Really,
yeah.
It's practiced particularly in the northern parts. So my family is from Southwest Nigeria, so my tribe is not that common. But in northern Nigeria, it's unfortunately still.
It's common there. They call it what do they call it? They call it Bondo.
Bondo. Okay.
Yeah. So when they take the young ladies, they take them to a place called they call it Bondo Bush, and they paint their faces white and this, that, the other, and they go there, they get it done. Some of them, they say to them, you're gonna go and visit your granny, or you're going on a trip or something like that, and then it just happens. And culturally, it's been going on for years. I think the new president, his wife, they're really trying to stamp it out, because you know what I mean. It's just like one of these things that it's been around for a long time, and it's just like, how is it really benefiting the people then? How is it really? But you see, the old school people, for them, it's a cultural thing. For like my mother and all these kind of people, they've done it from back in the day. But then you've got like aunties and stuff like that. That's how it's done to them, and they're like, nah, it's wrong.
It is.
Do you know what I'm saying?
And as Muslims, we should be in the forefront of fighting against FGM, because again, from Islamic perspective, you've got no right to mutilate a woman's body.
Yeah,
like
it's
so from Islamic perspective, so whether you're we've all got different cultures, but your religion overrides your culture. So Muslims should be in the forefront. It shouldn't be we need the West to have these campaigns. It's good what they're doing.
we don't.
But I'm saying as Muslims, let's be honest, if this was happening to boys, more men would be vocal about it. If men knew that they couldn't enjoy sexual relations, a lot of men would be speaking about it. But because unfortunately it's happening to women, and a lot of men are still enjoying themselves in the bedroom, a lot of men aren't even really saying when this is happening, unfortunately, to their daughters and and nieces and what have you. So again, I think it's something that as Muslims we need to kind of speak
100%, 100% when you speak out about it. All right, just before we go to the break, I want to say to you, you got a part in it which it talks about the language of sexual love. Explain that.
The language of sexual love. So that was
classical Arabic, the language of sexual love.
So that's looking at in Arabic there are obviously Arabic is a very rich language, and even there are tens, if not hundreds, of terms relating to the words towards sex and intimacy. So whether it's jima', which means to come together, whereas a good example is nikah. Everyone knows nikah means marriage. Now the root of the word nikah means to copulate, to have intercourse, because the goal for most people when they get married is to have sexual relations with their partner. So it's looking at that in Arabic. The Arabic language is very rich, that there's so many euphemisms for, like even asal, honey. That's a euphemism for for
Sweet.
sex.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things. And why is honey a euphemism for sex? Like what you just said, sweet. Honey is something that's sweet. It's something that's delicious. It's something that's nice.
Hello, like they say hello as well, right?
And that's what sex should be. So it should be a mutual pleasure between both parties. So that section I was looking at, the richness of the Arabic language, and there were so many terms used in a nice and delicate way, not crude or anything like that, to speak about sex and sexual relations. So again, as Muslims, this shouldn't be a topic that we should be uncomfortable to speak about intimacy between.
Habeeb, hold that thought. Brothers and sisters, here on Revive FM 94.1 on your FM dial with me, Ali Kamara, Muslim Poet. We've got Habeeb Akande in the studio today talking about a taste of honey and illuminating the darkness. Brothers and sisters, we're back after the break here on Revive FM 94.1 on your FM dial with me, Ali Kamara, the Muslim Poet. Habeeb, how you doing, brother?
I'm very well.
Habeeb, we're going to touch on your other book as well, Illuminating the Darkness. Tell us about Bilal ibn Rabah. I know he was one of the companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him.
Yeah, so Bilal ibn Rabah, he was...
I said it wrong. Bilal ibn Rabah, yeah?
Rabah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And Rabah means success as well in Arabic.
And I've got a friend called Rabah as well. I don't know how
Really?
I'm not saying it right, yeah.
Actually, my publishing company is called Rabah as well, named after Bilal and other companions who had similar, who had that name. It's a beautiful name. Now, Bilal is obviously, he's probably the most known black companion, and as much as he's a revered, we know that he was the first mu'adhin of the Prophet of Islam.
Yeah.
We know that he was a beloved companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We know that the Prophet Muhammad spoke about him, where he said that he heard his footsteps in paradise. So we know that he's promised paradise, and so he's going to be in al-Jannah, which is obviously the highest thing that anyone could aspire to in this world. So he is someone that's a beloved. We know about his story, and as much as I revere and hold him up in such high self-esteem, and someone that obviously I look up to, I think it's important as Muslims that we speak and we acknowledge other black.
Yeah, because the problem is everybody always says Bilal,
Yes.
and they don't know that there's so many other companions.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have said this to me, like, you know, when the people don't know you're Muslim, so you're Muslim, oh mashallah, do you know Bilal? I'm like, yeah, we've heard the story about Bilal.
And again, so it's a difficult conversation to have, because you don't want to be like, oh, there's other companions more than Bilal, because we don't want to disrespect Bilal, because Bilal is a revered
For those that don't know, name some black companions. For those that don't know, there's probably so many.
There is many. One of my favorites is, because again, a lot of people don't know, is there's someone who the Prophet referred to as my mother after my mother.
Not Halima.
Hayman.
Hayman, never heard of
Hayman, sorry. So
Hayman
was a woman who was of African descent from Abyssinia.
Mashallah.
She
which is modern day Ethiopia, for those that don't know.
Modern day Ethiopia. She breastfed the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So she was an enslaved woman initially. She was looked after him when he was born.
Right.
She obviously saw him when he grew up. She embraced Islam, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam advocated for her to. She married her first husband, and then when that first husband passed away, then the Prophet advocated for her who wants to marry Ayman.
Ayman, yeah.
And Zayd ibn Haritha married her.
Right.
And they bore a son, Usama. And not only that, we know Usama and Zayd were both great companions, and Usama is another black companion. So
Usama was a black companion as well?
His mother was black.
Oh, right.
And Zayd and his...
What about Zayd ibn Harith?
Well, then there's difference of opinion. There's some scholars that say that he was brown. Some will say that he was black because he was dark in complexion. So when we spoke earlier about who is black, so
is it because of the desert and that heat and stuff like that? Because you've got some Moroccans that come over here. Sorry to always pull out the Moroccans. They come over here, and some of them are dark skinned. No, not dark skinned. They're like light. When they get to the UK, because of the lack of sun, they almost turn like white, almost. You know.
That's a good point. But then, like with me, it's like when I'm referring to like quote unquote black Arabs, generally, because even Arabs, how they looked at blackness, they'll call themselves black in comparison to the Persians who are fairer in complexion.
Yeah.
They'll call themselves white or red in comparison to black Africans who are darker in complexion. So it depends. It's like when we're speaking like race, it's relative.
Yeah.
So when you ask, was Usama or Zayd black? It depends. In comparison to what? So in comparison to
me.
But then that's difficult. The reason why, again, it's difficult to say, because in terms of your skin complexion, they could be the same shade, but they might not call them black because they're an Arab and you're.
So we don't know. We can't. You can't really say. But Bilal, that's.
But even Bilal,
that's for sure, though, isn't it?
Yeah, Bilal's for sure. Even though he's half Arab, but he's black.
Why was Bilal for sure?
because he was referred to repeatedly as black and he was dark in complexion. So
Right,
there are other companions. So for example, Musa alayhi salam, you hear people say that Musa, because he was dark in complexion, some people say he's black and some people say no, he was brown, but he's not black. So because how we use black in this day and age, we generally refer to someone who's from sub-Saharan Africa.
Yeah.
If there's like a black Arab or like a black Indian, meaning dark in complexion, I generally wouldn't say that they're black because it might get confused.
What about Sad al-Aswad? The name al-Aswad is black.
Sad Aswad, yeah.
Sad Aswad, was he black?
Yeah, he was black. So all of those companions that I've relayed, they were companions that either were called black or self-identified as black, and they weren't people that earlier scholars like Ibn al-Jawzi, so I mentioned his book, The Virtues of Blacks and Abyssinians, which I would definitely recommend anyone to read, even if you don't read my book, because this was obviously a scholar that was from the 15th century, that was from Iraq, and he catalogued a number of Muslims of African descent or who are considered to be black. Now there were some people, like for example Musa, I didn't mention Ali bin Abi Talib, because there are some people that say they were black, some people that say that
you're going to get a big argument with that one, boy. Whoa.
So I left them out.
Saying that Ali bin Talib is black, do you know how many people's going to be on your back for that one?
No, that's what I'm saying. The controversial people, because I left them out because again, I didn't want to. The purpose of the book wasn't to say everyone is black, everyone is dark. It's just to, again, where we're speaking about the likes of Bilal, there's others as well as like Ayman, Usama that were black. And again, the whole point is not to just about black. It's just to kind of show that in Islam, in Islamic history, there were a number of people of African descent.
The diversity that was there. The diversity
of Islam. And again, I do conclude the book by speaking about the superiority of Taqwa, because at the end of the day, whilst I'm speaking about the issues of race, skin color, who was the forefather of black people, was it Ham, was it this person, was it that? Ultimately, the most important thing is taqwa. So as much as I'm speaking about the issue of anti-black racism and trying to make sure people don't feel that they are somewhat devalued or Allah's denigrating them because they're dark in complexion, is to make people understand that ultimately the most important thing is taqwa, to have good consciousness and your
but by writing by writing the books that you've written, you've actually made people aware of the amount of black people that were around in North Africa and in the Arabian Peninsula a very, very long time ago, especially for the youths coming up, because for some of them, when they see Arabian Peninsula, they just think it's just Arabs and not black people.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's a lot of miseducation, and there's been a number of, like, even in the last 5 years, books. So Dawud, Walid wrote a book. And with brother Ahmad Mubarak, they wrote a book called Centering the Narrative, which is similar, speaking about the contributions of black people in Islam, and they spoke about different black people. There was another book that recently was released called The Negro in Arab Muslim Consciousness by Sheikh Abdullah Hamid ibn Ali, which is a phenomenal book as well. So he's looking at the perception of blackness in the eyes of the early Arabs, because how they viewed blackness is very different to maybe how we view blackness. So he kind of looked into that and delved into that, and the concept of beauty as well, in terms of what is black beautiful in terms of the early Arabs. So there are a number of, like I said, and then obviously Ibn al-Jawzi's book has recently been translated into the English as well. So and I'm glad, because it's not just one book. There's a number of books, and they come from different angles, speaking about the issue of anti-black racism, speaking about the issue of colorism, speaking about the contributions of black Muslim women as well, because that's something that we always speak about the men.
We don't speak about the women.
We don't speak about the women. So like even Malcolm X, this is something that I always try and, everyone knows Malcolm X. I think that's a. But they don't know about his sister Ella Collins, and I always mention that, and she was even not even included in the film. So even as men,
I think that's a big discussion to have one day. We erase
the contributions of black women. So whilst black people are kind of not,
have we erased it, or we just haven't really had that discussion?
Well, I would say with the Malcolm X film, she was erased, because if you read the book, he spoke of her highly in terms of she was the one, she converted to Islam before he did. She told him about Islam before he even knew about Islam or met Elijah Muhammad. She was the one that funded his historic trip to Mecca, which we all know about. She was the one that instilled in him black pride and importance to love. Before, this is when he was young, when he was living in Detroit, Lansing, which again is all in his book. He mentions about her contribution, and she instilled in him.
The autobiography? The one by Alex Haley?
Yeah, the one with Alex Haley. So this is his word. So if Malcolm himself, may Allah have mercy upon his soul, is speaking about the importance of Ella Collins, his sister, his older sister, and the contribution that she had in him, and he speaks of her highly. But then when we're speaking about his life story, we omit her. So we have to take responsibility for that. The same way we might accuse non-Muslims of not acknowledging the contributions of Muslims in history, or we acknowledge Arabs and Asians for not acknowledging the contributions of black Muslims. We as men don't always acknowledge the contributions of Muslim women.
It's very important that we acknowledge it. It's really, really important. And
not only to acknowledge it just to say, oh, there was these great women, because inshallah people are going to be inspired by them, and inshallah
we need to write about it and make it be known in history, you know. So it never gets forgotten, so we can empower our sisters and our daughters. And do you know what I mean? It's something that people need to know. Do you know what I mean? You know,
100%.
so that they know that they haven't been marginalized and just swept under the rug and just put aside, like, you know what I mean? They haven't done anything, you know, to push us men forward, because everyone knows that the women are the backbone of many things. It's just that, do you know what I mean? Sometimes they don't get the credit that they deserve. The book in front of you, Habeeb, what is that one? Because
I'm bringing a number of books today. So this is Ibn al-Jawzi's book. So this was
the virtues of black Abyssinians. Woo, that looks
Illuminating the Darkness.
Illuminating the Darkness. The virtues of blacks and the Abyssinians. Wow.
So this was the. Obviously, I read the original in Arabic, but this was the...
Who wrote that one?
Ibn al-Jawzi.
Oh, brilliant.
So this is his book. So and again, I've followed the format, and a lot of my book in terms of who he was relaying, I translated it, but then I want to speak on other topics. But this book is phenomenal. I definitely recommend people to read it, because again, this shows that Muslims were speaking about anti-black racism and speaking about racial equality hundreds of years ago. And even this could be a form of da'wah as well. Because as Muslims, where we're now speaking about Black Lives Matter, anti-black racism, we've been speaking about this for hundreds of years.
For a lot of people that don't know, when the Prophet Muhammad was going through the hijrah with the companions, they left Mecca and they fled to Medina. But some of the companions as well went to Ethiopia.
Yes.
And that was when they was getting tracked down to Ethiopia. And it was the Christian king, I know people call him Najashi in Arabic, in English they call him Negus, was the one who said to them, you know what, you can stay here in Abyssinia as long as you want. And then when the Yahud or the Quraysh, came to get them, the Christian king said, not for a mountain of gold will I give them up. He said, you can stay here as long as you want. A lot of people don't know that story.
Really? I'm surprised. You're right.
A lot of people don't know it, especially non-Muslims. A lot of them don't know that story.
It's true, and it's a beautiful story, because it shows, again, that Africa has always been in Islamic history since the beginning. Because the first Muslims migrated, they went outside Arabian Peninsula, they went to Africa, and also in terms of understanding the importance of Muslim-Christian relations, because this was a Christian. We know eventually, alhamdulillah, he embraced Islam, but at the time he was a Christian, and he, as you said, he allowed the Muslims to stay as refugees, and he said that they'll be protected. So even as Muslims living in a predominantly Christian country, it's part of our religion to have good relations and to treat people well, irrespective of their religion, because they are human beings at the end of the day. So I think you're right. Not a lot of people know about this.
Habeeb, we could talk about this forever. I think you're gonna have to come back, and we're gonna have to do a part 2. We come to the end of the show, but we're gonna have to do a part 2. It's been a great topic, and there's so much to talk about. It's just not enough time. I wish there was, but. Would you come back and do a part 2?
Most definitely. I just want to say Jazakallah khairan for inviting me, and thank you for the work you're doing. And may Allah continue to bless you with what you're doing.
Me, my brother. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. And likewise, thank you for writing these great books, Illuminating the Darkness, brothers and sisters, and Blacks, and Illuminating the Darkness, Blacks and North Africans in Islam, Habeeb Akande's books, and A Taste of Honey and Sexuality and Erotology in Islam. You can get them on Amazon, and also Illuminating the difference between black, white and brown women by Habeeb Akande. You can actually get them on Amazon now, and he has an Instagram page as well, and so just hit him up, inshallah, and if you want to buy his books, you can actually get them on Instagram as well. Habeeb, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. You've been on Revive FM 94.0 on your FM dial, Kamara, Muslim part. Brothers and sisters, the hashtag is still stay safe. And remember, we have the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah coming up. So if you're not fasting, try and fast, inshallah, the day of Arafat. If you can't do any of the other days, try and do the day of Arafat. It's been a pleasure having you on the show, Habeeb. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.